Hello there, it's Jan here at JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me today. I am back with project number 2 for my 12 Days of Christmas series this year, and I've got a really nice sort of reasonably quick one today. Just wanted to keep it fairly simple for those of you that may have multiple cards to make and you just want to throw something together fairly quickly. So just using background papers, a die and a greeting on here, and very little else. There's a little bit of decoration with the twine and the gems, but yeah, not too bad. And I've actually gone for the A2 size today, which is, to us here in the UK, seems really small, but I know that this is the standard size of card over in the States. And there was someone had commented on one of my tutorials a few days ago about the square cards costing more money to post over in the States, and I am aware of that, but I like to show a whole range of designs on the channel, and obviously it's not just aimed at the American audience, but I do quite like this little size for just you know, if you're wanting to make quite a lot of something. It's a nice little size. It measures 5.5 inches by 4.25. Now for our A4 size here in the UK, it does prove quite difficult, because I know the reason this is an A2 size in the States is because it's half of their letter size, which is 11 by 8.5. Cuts down beautifully to make 2 of these. Now we can only get 1 of these out of a piece of A4, and then I have a strip that is just a little bit shorter. You can see here, if I put this over the top, it's not quite as wide. Now the option for that is to make my card 4 1/8, which I did consider, but then that's just reducing it even more from a size, you know, our sort of smallest size. We do have 4x6 cards here in the UK, but I tend to do 7x5 as an average small size card. So yeah, I'm quite happy to use this for something else. I've put this back in my packet with the cardstock, and I'll use it for something else. So I've got a really cute little gingerbread design today. I love this little die. This is one that I bought last year off Amazon and didn't get around to using it. So when I've actually fetched all the Christmas stuff out and had a look through, this is one that I actually found in the box that I'd not used. So little trio of gingerbread men there, and I've picked out some papers that sort of go with that gingerbread theme. Top folding card, and then inside I've kept it very simple with a greeting. These little candy canes came with the die, and then this is actually the piece that I tore from the bottom of this section here. Again, you know, not throwing that away the waste, it always comes in handy, and it links it back to the front. So yeah, let's show you how I put it together. And as I say, very, very simple today. So I've cut my card from that piece of A4. If I actually show you the other piece, this is the length of our A4, so we do get that little bit extra, which is about 3/4 of an inch and a fly's eyelash. It's a stupid, silly measurement. I don't know who came up with it. To be honest, I think I'd rather have the 8.5 by 11, but that's where we're at. So yeah, I've had to cut a piece off the top here, which I will save to stamp sort of sentiments and things like that on. And then I've sliced it down the middle at the 4.25 inches. And this is what we ended up with. I've scored it halfway, and we've got our nice little A2 card style. So you could make this on any size. If you prefer the 5x7, you could just scale it up slightly and it would fit on there beautifully. And then what I did, out of the cardstock that was left, so out of the other piece of this here, I've cut a 5.25 by 4 inch panel, which is going to go on the top here to create a matte layer. And this one I wanted to do the pattern paper on. Now you could actually put the pattern paper straight onto the card. It would go on there, but the reason I've done it, I'll explain as we go along as to why I actually sort of put it onto that extra layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the plain piece. I did start off with the stars and the plaid, but then actually I thought I prefer the plain bit, and that gives me a nice space to put my greeting. So I'm going to bring in my all-purpose glue, and I'm also going to bring in some of my oxide ink, which I can, to be honest, I can do that when I've stuck them together. I can go around the edge. So I'm going to stick this piece down first of all, and just pop this one level with the bottom. I think if anything it's just a fraction wider than my card. I do normally cut them a little bit wider so that I can trim them down, and I am going to put this, it's minimal, to be honest. It might not need trimming, this one. Put that right to the bottom of the design there. And then this piece I'm going to put over the top, but before I do that I want to tear this bottom edge. So I'm just going to take about 1/4 of an inch, and I'll give you the sizes of these pieces so you can do that split if you wish. You could do all one piece of paper, it doesn't have to be 2 separate pieces of pattern paper. Again, these were out of the scrap bin, so again this one's going to go over the top here, like so. I might take a little bit more off there, but I am going to take it off the top now because I don't want to re-tear that against the tear. It's not that easy. So yeah, just pop that. I just want to leave enough space at the bottom, that's better, to have my greeting here at the bottom. So I've got my ground espresso ink, and before I stick it together I am going to go along that tear line just to emphasize that edge. I always think with the brown ink it almost looks like that sort of burnt edge on it. And then we're going to pop this one on the top. So I'm just going to overlay that, and again using that all-purpose glue just to get a nice firm bond for this topper section. And then we're going to pop this one, oops, it's a good job that's going underneath, Jan, on the top here. And that will line up with the rest of it. Make sure that we've got a nice edge on there. That one does, yeah, there's a little bit overhanging there which I can trim. Get that one stuck down. We're going to use the ink again in a second. I just have a tiny little sliver overhanging that edge, which we'll just trim back with the scissors there. There we go. There was barely anything there, but just that little tiny bit. And then I'm going to go all the way around the edge now and just darken that edge. It also is very forgiving in that if your paper's not quite wide enough, or if you've not got it quite straight, the inking just disguises all that and brings it all together. So just all the way around, especially on that bottom edge where we've got that plain paper. So this is ground espresso. It's a nice dark brown. It goes nicely with that craft colour. And then I just need my cloth to get those bits off. I don't want to make any more smear marks on there. And this is the piece that we're going to use now that's going to settle on the top of here. Now the reason that I did it on cardstock was because I wanted to make it a little bit more substantial, because we're going to put the twine round it. And I want to just, I think it was about 2 inches, yeah. I'm going to come up about 2 inches from the bottom here. I'm going to make a little tiny mark with my pencil so that I know whereabouts I'm going to do this. And sometimes if I'm putting twine around cards, I like to just do this so that it nestles in there nicely. And all I'm going to do is take my single hole punch, and where I've put those marks, I'm just very gently, and I'm only going to take sort of like a half circle out of it. You can just see there I've not done a full hole punch. I've just gone halfway over the edge and just taken a little tiny notch out of the edge there. That's all I'm going to do. And what that does then is allow me to sort of nestle the twine in here, and it just sits nicely without moving about. You can see how it just tucks in there, and then round this side, and then we're going to tie this off so I can chop a piece off the end of there. And then we're just going to tie this. I was going to do a bow initially, but it was a little bit too much in my opinion, so I decided to just do a knot on there. The bow was sort of distracting me, I think, from the rest of it, like so. And then we'll trim those tails off to just little short pieces on the knot, like so. A bit generous with the twine there, but I have got a stash of it. So that's what we're going to have here. Now then, I'm going to pop this into my stamp press now, and we're going to pop the sentiment in here. And I've done the same again. I'd have been better off doing this before I put the twine on, but I did this with the original one. We should be okay here. And I just want to pop it in that bottom corner here. You can see that there, and stamp straight onto that card piece here. So we'll go just in from the edge there, because we're going to have our panel down here. So I want to sort of centre it in between the brown area and just bring it in. I think that's looking okay. Make sure that it's running straight, and then I'm going to use my brown, which is Fallen Leaves, in my VersaFine Clair, and give this a nice good ink. So again, the stamp is from my stash. I'm always encouraging you to have a rummage through that stash and see what you can find. If it's anything like mine, I get surprised every time I look through it, and we've got that stamped out beautifully there at the bottom. So I'm going to leave that to dry for a second while we work on our topper section. So that one can stay there. And we'll pop that to one side. The VersaFine Clair, because it's a pigment ink, just take a little while to dry. So I'm going to leave that and not try and smudge it. You can always give it a blast with a heat tool if you're wanting to move on with it. Now for the topper, I've used a couple of dies. So I've got a banner die, which I've just cut some of that scrap cream that we use for the card base. And then these are my little tumbling gingerbreads. I just think they're lovely. They're a little tower of them. So I've cut them twice out of some scrap craft card, which is obvious gingerbread colour there. And then I've started just working on the back of them here to make the little buttons and the black eyes there. And that's how I wanted to do it. So again, I've just been in the scrap bin. I've got the tiniest little bits of cardstock. I'm going to trim. I just need a sliver off the black here. And this is why I keep all the little pieces, because you never know when they're going to come in handy. And then all I did was pop some tiny little dabs of glue on here at the back, like so. Oh, that didn't help, John. There we go. Let's just get that off the desk before it dries. And then I'm just going to put a piece of the red over the back of the buttons, like so. And then I'm going to put the black piece across the back of the eyes, like that. Nobody's going to see any of this because it's then going to stick onto my topper piece here. And then I'm going to take the ink again and just in places, because there are lots of little nooks and bits in here, but I thought where I can reach with the blending tool, just going to add some of the brown, and it just gives them a little bit of depth with that shading on, and it brings them in line with the rest of the card there. So I'm not worried that it's not in all the little spaces. It's just enough to hint that there's a little bit of shaping, and I think it just finishes them off nicely. It will dry back a little bit, the ink. It's not quite as dark as that when it's dried. And then we're going to use some foam pads to put those on to here. So I think what we'll do is we'll put the foam pads on here ready, and then we'll start and assemble the rest of the card. So I want one. Oops. Let's put you in the middle. Two on each one, just to keep it nice and even when we pop it onto the card there. And these are just 1mm foam pads, so they don't add a lot of depth. So if we bring this piece back in, I'm going to attach this straight to the card, like so. So again, I'm going to use my all-purpose glue. The twine is not really deep enough for it to cause a problem, I don't think, when it's stuck down. I've just stuck mine straight to the card. And we're going to add this to the front, like so. And the sample, I did raise it up on some foam. But again, you know, if you're wanting to mail the cards, they're sometimes better kept flat. But yeah, it's not creating enough of a problem at the sides there for it to be an issue. And then we're going to pop this bit down here, and again you can put this on foam tape if you wish. I'm just going to bring it straight over the twine. Just wondering actually whether it would have looked nice underneath there, and then pop these. No, I think I prefer it over the top. I did it over the top with the first one. Now I'm not going to ink this one, which is unusual for me. I wanted to keep it clean so that this bit stood out from the top. And I'm going to come in sort of about 1/2 inch-ish. I'm going to use the stripes on the plaid to get that in place and bring it right from the top edge of that pattern paper down the side of the card. Now there is a tiny little ridge here, but once the gingerbread are over the top, I don't think it's going to make much difference there. So just hold that in place for a second. And then I'm going to take the backers off the foam pads. And then we'll get this one stuck down. So the last two. And then we're just going to pop these along here as if they're sort of on that little stacking. So the bottom one's straight and then the other two are balancing. I just think it's a really cute little die. And that pretty much is the card finish. Like I said, nice and straightforward today, nice and simple. So A2 in size. We've got that split pattern paper there with the solid at the bottom. Again, have a rummage through your paper pads or your scrap boxes and see what's available. And then I've just used it. You could use any die on here. It could be a Christmas tree on here with suitable paper. It could be a snowman. It could be a set of bells. All sorts of different things that are suitable for that holiday vibe on there. And then just to finish off, I've added 3 little gems in the red, just to bring these little buttons into place. I did wonder whether to go along the buttons. I was very tempted, you know what I'm like, and I'm like, no, just hold fire, because I didn't want to go berserk with it. So I've just highlighted the sentiment, and then inside we've got that greeting, and then the bit that I tore off the bottom, you can see that's the piece that I've used. Torn a little bit more off that one to just go across the inside there and link it back to the front. So wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and that is our card for today. So yeah, I said it was going to be a quick one today. I wanted something in there that was fairly simple, and again, like I said, it's a top fold one, A2 size, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love this little die. It's quite cute. I think it'd be a nice one for the kiddies. I might make their Christmas cards with this on. I've not done anything for them yet, but I think they would enjoy something like this, and they both love gingerbread, the boys. So baby's a little bit small yet, but I'm sure he'd give it a go. Anyway, I'm rambling again. If you've enjoyed this, consider giving it a thumbs up for me. I would love to have you as a subscriber if you've not already joined the channel. And I will be back with another tutorial very shortly in that Christmas, 12 Days of Christmas series for this year. So enjoy your day now, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.